Welcome to the Gabrielle Lara Show, a podcast created for the new and aspiring entrepreneur who's navigating the messy middle part of their entrepreneurial journey. I'm your host, Gabrielle. I'm a niche expert and a sales coach who helps coaches like you find your niche and sell in a way that's authentic to you so that you can have a thriving business. I'll be inviting entrepreneurs from all walks of life onto these episodes to share their story of how they went from an aspiring entrepreneur to a CEO and all the messy parts they navigated in between so that you do not feel alone on this journey. Sit back, relax, and stay a while because you are more than welcome here. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Gabrielle Lara Show. I have a really fun guest today. Her name is Brianne, and she is a nurse. And I have never had a nurse on the show before, so I am so excited to welcome you on, Brianne.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited to chat with you.
Yes, I can't wait to dive into your story. I can't wait to really kind of hear about the messy middle that you navigated to get from where you were to where you are now and go through all of that. So I'm going to pass it off to you and give you the opportunity to really share your story with our audience and, hoping to, if we have any listeners who may be nurses who are navigating all of that, they can feel really seen and heard through your story.
Yeah, awesome. So one thing I really love about sharing our stories is I think it gives inspiration and it gives people permission to say, oh my gosh, if she did that, so can I, or kind of see yourself in someone else's story. And so I'm excited to kind of share my journey with you because it is kind of a winding journey to kind of where I've ended up today. And so just to start out, I have been a nurse for 15 years. And so it's kind of crazy to say that because I really don't feel like it's been that long, right? So I graduated nursing school in 2007. So this was right before the 2008 recession. And if you were like, I'm going to be 40 this year. So if you're in that age and you were in the working environment during that, you know that that was a hard time. So I had just graduated nursing school and I ended up going right into my career. And I never, ever had even realized that I had picked such a stable career. Number one, because I was starting my career right when, like during the recession, when college graduates could not get jobs, when, the economy tanked, when all of these things were going on, I had job security because I was working inside of healthcare. And so that was one thing that I did not even realize when I went into nursing school, when I committed to being a nurse. Like I never even thought about like this was job security for me. So that's when I kind of started my career. And so I spent most of my career in the ER. So I just kind of by default kind of landed in the ER. It's not really something that I had planned out. It was just kind of, I like to say that the ER chose me. So the ironic thing is I ended up falling in love with it. So I had no clinical experience. Like when I went through nursing school, I never did any kind of clinicals in the ER, but I saw the opportunity as a new graduate to step into this role of kind of getting a little bit of everything. So in nursing, if you just look at like the career itself, there's so many avenues that you can go. Like you can work with pediatric, you can work with geriatrics, you can, work specifically like with GI, you can work with podiatry. I mean, like literally there's so many avenues that you could go. So when it came to the ER, I was like, ooh, this is a great opportunity for me to get some experience with a little bit of everything, because in the ER, you get traumas, you get like ingrown toenails, you get like the array of things. So like it gave me a lot of experience. And so I saw that opportunity. So I stepped into that role, scared, afraid of the unknown. But I really ended up thriving there. I loved it. I ended up falling in love with the chaos of it all. And so that's kind of where I spent the majority of my career. So I did do some travel nursing, which was super fun. That was kind of just a goal that I had, like even going into nursing, I was like, that would be cool to be able to work and to be able to travel. So as I had gotten some experience in the ER, then I was able to kind of take that experience and do a little bit of travel nursing with it, which I ended up loving that as well. So, kind of fast forward a little bit, I ended up meeting my husband in 2009, and we met on Facebook, ironically. And this is before, you guys have to think, like, I know Facebook now has like this dating, thing that they do, but this is like back in the day of Facebook when none of that was there, right? So I basically married my stalker, my Facebook stalker.
I love
But
that so
yeah,
much. It's such a good story.
so yeah, he was very persistent, and I'm like, who is this guy? Like, I'm not into online dating. Like, he doesn't like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, we ended up chatting, and we went out to sushi the following night, and then kind of the rest is
Oh,
history. But
I
yeah,
love
so
that.
anyway, yeah, we ended up fast tracking it. So we met in 2009. We got married in 2010, and we had our first baby in 2011. So my
Wow.
husband, yeah, he's 10 years older than I am. So it was kind of like we were ready, like we knew. And so we kind of fast tracked it. So here I am, working in the ER, which I ended up, as I mentioned, I love that. But as I got married, as I had my first child, I found that the balance was it was off. Like, I couldn't deal with the craziness and the chaos and the ER. And then, 2013, we added our second son to our family. So here I am, two small kids, 2 years apart, and it was just too much crazy. And so at that time, I had to make a decision. I remember actually crying, take like my first day back in the hospital, having to take my 6 week old little boy to daycare after
Oh,
I returned from maternity leave. I remember sitting in the parking lot of the hospital and just crying and saying, I have got to figure something else out.
yeah.
At that point, I had kind of, after, kind of assessing like, okay, the chaos at the ER and chaos at home, I need to do something a little different. I stepped into like working in doctor's offices for the better hours. I did some home health care, and it was just not, I just wasn't getting fulfillment from there. I was working, for the better hours, but I was making less money, and I knew that I had to figure something else out. And so my next thought was, and I think, as you're listening, I think a lot of us kind of get caught up in what we're supposed to do next. Maybe this is a parent telling you this is what you need to do next. Maybe it's the world that's telling you this is what you're supposed to do. So that for me was that I needed to go back to school, and that I needed to further my education. I have my associate's degree in nursing. And so I said, okay, well, let me go back and do my BSN to MSN and get my master's. That seemed logical to me, kind of. um, However, I knew deep down that it was not the right decision, but the world was telling me that's what I needed to do. That was my next step. So I pursued that, and quickly I realized, okay, when I went to nursing school, like, again, I was single. I was my only responsibility. I had no kids. And so if you have a friend, or if you've been through nursing school yourself, it really consumes you. Like, you are literally living being a nursing student. It consumes you. So this idea of going back to school online, I have a family, I have a husband, I have kids. It was just like, I kind of knew in my gut that this was not the right decision, but I started online classes, and to no surprise, I ended up hating it. Literally, I was taking classes, and a lot of your furthering your education in nursing is not clinical. It's a lot of I was taking English classes and history classes, and a lot of
Oh,
it is just not that clinical side of nursing. So
yeah.
it's just a piece of paper that
Right.
I'm working for. And so as I started to kind of evaluate this and kind of future cast and look at where I would be like with my master's degree, I was going to be in an administrative position because that's usually the role that a nurse, you can either, you kind of, a lot of nurses will kind of navigate into teaching. So like teaching college students in the field of nursing, or into an administrative position inside of the hospital or inside of some kind of healthcare corporation. So I was like, oh gosh, this is not where I want to go. Like I did not like that idea of having to wear dress clothes every day, having to sit behind a desk and be in an administrative position. And so I had to really, really reevaluate and say, okay, like, what do I want to do? Like, what is this life that I want to create? And so from there, it's kind of funny. So I ventured into the online world and I've never looked back. I got started in network marketing. Naively enough, I had no idea what network marketing even was. Okay. I was literally just attracted to the opportunity. And so I wanted to be able to work at home. I wanted to be able to work around my kids' schedules. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom so badly. Like I mentioned, dropping my little one off at daycare, I was like, I have got to figure something else out. And this was my avenue to be able to do that. And so, from there, I have evolved. I've, stepped into coaching now. Now I serve nurses specifically through my podcast. I have a podcast called The Passive Income Nurse. And I really love helping and providing nurses with passive income solutions so they can diversify their income, just like I did. And so what this helps them
so
do.
much. Keep going. Sorry, I was just like, you go, girl. That's so badass.
Yeah. So I really, my goal and my mission is to really help nurses take control of their schedules so they have the opportunity to create freedom and flexibility in their lives. Because, granted, I stepped into this space before COVID even happened. And I knew as a nurse, I experienced not really, there's a lot of burnout in nursing. And I can honestly say, I don't think that I have ever gotten to that point of burnout inside of nursing, other than just feeling unbalanced with my family life and my work life. I was overwhelmed in that sense. I was never really burnout in my career. It was more just my life, and that balance was off. And I know a lot of people just in general experience that, but my heart really goes out to nurses that are living that right now, and then having to deal with everything inside of healthcare, dealing with COVID and, death and all of the things. It's just, I know nurses are looking for other opportunities, and maybe that's not to step away from the bedside. So many nurses I talk to, nursing brings them joy. Like they just love being a nurse, and that's awesome. Like we need nurses, obviously, but I really want to provide them the opportunity to be able to take control of their schedule. So maybe that looks like just working in the hospital one day a week, and then you're having this other, this passive stream of income, this side hustle, this whatever you want to call it on the side. Maybe it's a passion project. Maybe it's something that, you can just pour your heart and soul into that really fills you up and fills your cup and still allows you to be a nurse. And so that's really my mission. And every nurse's goal is different. I love, being at home and being able to work around my kids' schedules. Like I work maybe 15, 20 hours a week. I coach in that time. I record my podcast in that time. And then when my kids get home from school, I'm done. I don't work on the weekends. And so it's allowed me to create that life. And, I learned a lot through, building my passive income business in this network marketing space, it has not always been that way. I was very consumed with social media. I was very consumed and distracted. So I've done a lot of things the wrong way. And through that, doing things the wrong way, I've learned so much about really putting what I value first and really structuring my life around my values. Because yes, I wanted to create a passive income with this, my network marketing company, and yes, I wanted to reach the ranks, and yes, I wanted to grow a team, and yes, I wanted to do all these things, but I was not focusing on my values and what I valued most, and I was like neglecting my family. I was super hyper distracted. I was not being intentional. And so from there, I have been able to structure my business and structure everything that I do around my values, like family, faith, my health, my marriage, all of these things I'm very intentional about, because I've not been so intentional about them in the past. So I love that you kind of like on your show, you highlight like the messy middle.
Right.
And so for anyone listening that feels like they're in this messy middle, just keep going, because it's in that messy middle that you learn so much. Like if I would have not went through, feeling that tension of chaos at work and chaos with my little ones, I wouldn't have stepped into the online world. If I wouldn't have stepped into the online world, I wouldn't have been able to, show up and serve nurses the way that I do. Like, so there's always fruit from those messy middles, and you have to embrace it. And you have to know that, through action and through like obedience and stepping into that calling, maybe that's been placed on your heart, and stepping into those uncomfortable places. Again, I stepped into the ER and I had no experience there. I stepped into the online world and I had no idea what network marketing was. I stepped into creating a podcast and I had never recorded a podcast episode. So you have to get uncomfortable, and you have to say, like, give yourself permission to embrace the messy middle, because there's so much value in that season, in that just, in that place of just letting yourself be, and know that clarity comes with action, and it's an evolution. It's not something you're going to wake up and say, okay, now I know what I'm supposed to do. Now I know my purpose. Now I know my calling. Giving yourself that permission to embrace that messy middle, and to just, step into maybe that calling that you have on your heart, to be able to do something that may look a little bit different. And just really, know that through taking action, through putting one foot in front of the other, you are going to get clarity on, where you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to do, who you're supposed to serve, and, really just having that, creating that life that you want. And so, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is just such a beautiful story, Brianne. And especially what you said afterwards of just like something that really stuck out to me. You probably saw me taking notes so much, was like, you said, just like, let yourself be. Just let yourself be. Like, I think so often when we are in those messy middle points, it's like we panic, and it's like, we have to get into problem solving mode. How do we get out of this? How do we get out of this? But that's not the lesson, right? The lesson is to just like allow yourself to flow through it, and know, and like have that faith, right? And knowing like in whatever you believe in, right? Whether it's God, it's universe, whoever, like they are supporting you, and you're going to get to the other side.
Yeah.
You will figure it out. We all do. You will figure it out. And it stinks, but like allow it to.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And, a lot of times when, I think a lot of people give up way too soon.
Yeah.
And then they're left with regret. So if you can really flip that mindset as like, it's going to be uncomfortable. I'm probably going to make some mistakes. It's not going to be perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. And let yourself be through every action, through every time that you make a mistake, every time that you can like have a failure. I've even heard it be told to fail faster, because you learn so much in those failures. And so really having that mindset going into, maybe you're thinking about stepping away from your career. Maybe
Mhm.
you really have something that has been placed on your heart and you don't really like, you're like in analysis paralysis because you don't even know where to start.
Right.
So it's almost just take a deep breath and what's the next right thing?
Exactly.
Maybe it's reaching out and talking to someone.
Mhm.
Maybe it's, sending someone an email. Maybe it's making a phone call. Whatever that is, what's the next right step? You don't have to do all the things.
Right. Right.
And
Yes.
that's one thing, like with my business, it's an evolution.
Mm.
Like, I look at all the things that I need to do. I need to redo my website. I need to do this. I need to, I have all these big projects that I need to do. And it's like, no, let me look at what I need to do next.
Mhm.
What is the next step that I need to take that is going to, you know, be the best investment at this time? Is it rebuilding my website right now? No.
Yeah.
Does it need to happen? Yes, it will happen. But right now, I need to give myself space to really focus on, like, I have 15 to 20 hours to work a week. And
Yes.
so I have to be really intentional and really strategic with that, because otherwise I can let all these other things flood in and then I'm just distracted. And then I feel like I'm doing nothing but spinning wheels, like I'm
Exactly.
getting nowhere.
Yeah. And that's like that's and it's so common because I think especially on social media, people make it seem like they do all of the things, right?
Hmm.
So then when you're stepping into the space, it's like, wow, I need to do all the things because they just hit this big shiny number, which is just,
Hmm.
a boatload of BS in itself because that doesn't show like their expenses is that, all of that. It's so misleading. And, when we see those things on social media, especially as newer entrepreneurs listening to this, it's so easy to just feel like one, you have to do it all, or two, why can't you do it?
Hmm.
Right? It's those people who are you're seeing that have teams, right?
Hmm.
Like, and even on my end, I try not to like showcase all the things that like I outsource, right? So it doesn't look like I'm doing all my branding, all my website right now, but I pass that off to somebody because no way could I handle that right now.
Hmm.
And like that's the reality of it is to get all of these things done and to like scale your business, it takes outsourcing, which
Hmm.
involves investing, which involves like healing your money mindset, which is a messy middle in itself, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it, it's just it can be so misleading. And I think too, so everyone listening, I did a episode on Brianne's podcast, which you guys should absolutely listen to. We'll put it in the show notes. And I think that you were talking on there, like you don't do social media anymore, right?
Mm-mm.
Oh, I love that. So can you walk us through that? Like walk us through that,
Yeah.
why you decided that, what that has done for you in your business. Cause I love that. And I know so many people are getting burnt out by social media.
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, I stepped into the online space as like with a network marketing company. And so, what you're taught in that space is to show up on social media. And so that's what I did. I'm a very driven person. You tell me what to do, I will show up and I will do the things. And so I did that for years. Um, for probably about 4 years, I showed up on social media every single day. I was posting stories because that's what I was told to do, post 5 to 7 stories every day, make a post, blah, blah, blah. I grew my following, blah, blah, blah. And so I really came to a place, and this happened in 2020 when the whole world shut down and my kids came home and I was their teacher.
Wow.
And I said, okay, God, I'm building this business and I cannot sustain this. There's no way I can teach my kids, be their mom, be their teacher, be their full time everything, and still grow my business. What do I need to do? Lay it down. Your kids are your priority. And I said, oh, okay. So I trusted and I laid it down in 2020. So there was months, I think I went, I don't know, 6, 7 months, and I never picked it up. I focused on my kids. I focused on being at home with them. We, got into the routine of homeschooling, which I mean, if you're a parent and you're listening, it's not for me. I love my kids dearly, but it's just a different dynamic. They
Yeah.
do not listen to you. They do not learn from you like they learn from others. So anyways, there was a huge lesson in that. I'm very thankful for the time that I actually got to hang out with them. Even though it was super hard, there were days that, I mean, I screamed, I yelled, my kids cried, all the things. But I'm so grateful for that time that I had with them, and just, kind of getting back to the whole social media part of things. So I laid it down, and then I started my podcast in April. So it's a year old this
Yay.
month. Yeah. So I started my podcast in April of 2021. And I had kind of had this on my heart for a while to start a podcast, but I really didn't. There was no space for it. I was showing up on social media so frequently. That was where I was spending all of my time, and I had no more time to add another thing. And so it kind of just got put on the back burner, and I didn't do anything with it. And then so once I laid social media down, once my kids transitioned back into school, thank God, I had the time and the space to start the podcast. And so I started in April 2021, and from there, I got back on social media because I was like, okay, I have the time and the space. I'm going to be strategic about it now, and I'm going to have a game plan versus just going on social and getting distracted and getting in the rabbit hole and wasting hours on Instagram or wherever. So I got back on to promote my podcast last year, and I was doing reels, and because that's what you're supposed to do, right? Like reels are hot right now. And then it was like, okay, Clubhouse. I'm like, again, all the things. And so I started to find myself in a place of, like I'm feeling myself go in the direction that, led to all the burnout and the things before. So I said, okay, I'm going to lay it back down again. And so I have not been on social since maybe like September of 2021. So I was on there for a short time, kind of promoting my podcast. And I will share something interesting with you. And I don't say this to boast. I don't say this to, to shine light on me, but I just want you to see what is possible. Yeah. So you guys, I have not been on social media for however many months that is, from September to April of 2020, if you're listening currently, as this podcast is airing. But I have been able to grow my podcast to almost 30,000 downloads, and I have created a community, and I have not been on social media. And so I've really just embraced that, because again, like, there's so much hype around social media. You need to show up here, and you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to be on Facebook, you need to be over here, you need to do this. And it's like, I can't sustain that. And so it's been so freeing and so much peace around just sitting behind my microphone. I'm showing up, I'm adding value, I'm connecting, I'm building relationships, and it just gives you so much freedom. And so through that, it's been able to just add this other layer of just freedom in my life and in my schedule, and so much peace. And I didn't have that before. I struggled with feeling guilty because I wasn't showing up on social media, and then I was feeling guilty because I was distracted on my phone around my kids. And so with the podcast, it just allows me to show up. It allows me to be me. It allows me to just, show up authentically and connect with my listeners, and, let go of what we're being taught and what we're being shown to do in a business, to show up on social media. Because in reality, social media, it's kind of a catch-22. Yes, it's free marketing. Yes, you can build a following. Yes, you can build connections and relationships, but it's also a very big comparison trap. And whether you realize it or not, and maybe you use social media for leisure, maybe you don't use it for business, but nonetheless, you compare yourself, whether you feel like you do or not. You do. you go to somebody's Instagram and you look at, oh, how many followers does she have?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, Susie down the street, she just got a new car. Huh,
Yeah.
that's nice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so whether you realize it or not, there's comparison that goes on. And, for me, I actually, I have a Facebook group. I have other Facebook groups that I'm a part of, but, and I will go on Instagram and I will follow people to
Mm-hmm.
support them. And I show up, like, I've really been using LinkedIn a lot lately.
Mm.
And I've found that that's where my people are, like
Yeah.
my nurses and they're
Yeah.
professionals. And so, just kind of navigating that and just knowing that I have to be really intentional. Like I still get into my Facebook groups. I have communities there that I love hanging out in, but I'm very intentional.
Yeah.
I don't like stories suck me in. And so
Yeah.
I know, like, when I open up the app, like, I have got to go, like, to my setting,
Yep.
like, I've got to find my group that I'm going to and go there,
Yep.
because if I click on that story, then it's going to be like, oh, da, 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 and then it's
Mm-hmm.
like, then you're watching everybody's, life
Yep.
unfold in front of you. And then I'm totally distracted. And then 30 minutes have gone by and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, what was I doing again?
Mm-hmm.
I forgot, like, what happened here. So I have to be really intentional about that. But yeah, so that's kind of my journey from, growing a following on social media, and then just really being obedient and stepping back from, feeling like that's where I have to show up and that's, where I have to serve, and to really focusing on the podcast and letting that one thing be the main thing. And
Yes.
so, yeah.
Yes. Preach that. So important. And I love just highlighting that for people listening. Like, you don't have to do social media, and just like come back and listen to this episode when you feel like you do need to, and listen to Brianne's story and how, she scaled her podcast in a year to 30,000 downloads. That's absolutely incredible. So I have 2 questions left for you. So number 1
Sure.
is, what do you wish that you could go back and tell yourself at the start of your business?
Oh, wow. At the start of my business, I wish I could go back and tell myself that I didn't need social media.
Oof.
Um,
Yes.
and I
Oh, I
know,
love that.
and I know we just talked a lot about, the whole social media part of it, but I really got caught up in the hustle. And I do not believe that, God has placed us on this earth to hustle and to work harder.
Mhm.
I think that, we are called to do the things and to follow the things and to pursue the things that have been placed on our heart. And I don't think that you should sacrifice the things that are most important to you, such as your family,
Mhm.
and be distracted from your kids, your husband, and taking the time away from them to trying to build the thing. I know that there is some sacrifice involved, as far as, like, maybe you need to outsource and,
Mhm.
get a babysitter for your kids so you can work on your business for 1 to 2 hours. Maybe you need to tell your husband, okay, tonight, this evening, I need you to put the kids to sleep and I need to work on my business for 1 hour, or
Right.
whatever that looks like. But really, just, you know, when it comes to the social media part of it, it, it can suck the life out of you, and it can really get you caught up in that hustle mentality, and, like, you're always reaching for more and you're always reaching for more. So I really, like, at the beginning of my business, I just really wish I would just have, like, let go of that social media part and know that I need to build my business on the solid foundation of being partnered with God and letting Him be the CEO.
Mhm.
And through that obedience, you have clarity. Again, clarity is an evolution, but you guys have heard me say and mention peace.
Mm.
You have so much peace in even in the messy, even in the chaos, even amongst all the things that, quote unquote, go wrong.
Mhm.
You still are able to experience that peace. And I did not have that when I was focusing on the metrics and focusing on all the things the world told me I should do, I did not have that peace. I was so just, I can't even explain it really. I was just like anxious. I never had that just relaxed feeling. I always felt like I needed to be doing more.
Mhm.
And so now, looking back, I wish that was, something that I would have made a priority from the very beginning. But
I
again,
love
you
that.
learn through the messy middle and,
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know, right? Like
you
you
don't.
just like you going back to school, right? It's like things that like you feel like you should be doing, but like you secretly know like aren't really aligned for you. And of course, starting
Yeah.
an online business, everyone says like you must be on social media. And
Mhm.
I just love this example so much. And I know it's going to resonate a lot with my audience because I hear about the social media burnout often.
Mhm.
So my last question for you, Brianne, is how can people get in touch with you? How can they listen to you? How can they work with you? What does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on Apple iTunes or any podcasting platform. It's the Passive Income Nurse podcast. And so come follow me, come hang out there, shoot me a message. You can email me. It's super easy. It's Brianne. It's BRIANNE. And then it's at BrianneBell.com. So that is my email address. You can also find me on LinkedIn, of course, Brianne Bell. And if you want to come follow me on Instagram, come on over there. Like I mentioned, I do pop on every now and then. I'm not super active on there, but I would love to support you. Or you can shoot me a DM. I always answer my DMs. It may take me a few days, but I do always get back to my DMs. And it's at the Passive Income Nurse over on Instagram.
Awesome. I'm going to put everything in the show notes for you guys below. And thank you so much for joining, Brianne.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gabby. It was fun.
That was awesome. Thank you. What a fun
You're
time. I appreciate
welcome.
you so much. I'm going to stop recording now.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy today's episode? If so, I would be super appreciative if you left a review and a rating and shared this with a friend so that I can continue to bring you value every single week. I'll see you next time.